In 1999, a retired Los Angeles homicide detective sat in a quiet room, sorting through the belongings of his recently deceased father. Among the stacks of old documents, he found a black and white photograph of a dark-haired woman. He had spent his career closing cases for strangers, but looking at this face, he realized his longest investigation was just beginning. The woman in the picture resembled Elizabeth Short, a 22-year-old who arrived in Los Angeles half a century earlier with the same aspirations as thousands of others in the 1940s. She took odd jobs and moved between apartments, hoping for a break in an industry that rarely noticed her. That break never came. Instead, on the morning of January 15, 1947, a mother walking with her child through Leimert Park found Elizabeth's body in a vacant lot. The scene was clinical. Her remains were severed at the waist, drained of blood, and positioned right next to a public sidewalk. The lack of blood in the dirt proved Elizabeth had been murdered and cleaned somewhere else before being transported to the lot. The precision of the work suggested a killer with formal medical training and experience in anatomical dissection. This medical profile gave the LAPD a clear starting point. However, the details of the crime leaked to the press almost immediately, sparking a media frenzy that quickly overwhelmed the department's ability to manage the search. The ensuing manhunt was the largest in the department's history. Hundreds of investigators were assigned to the case, but the investigation struggled under the weight of civilian interference and leaked evidence that corrupted potential leads. This chart illustrates the primary obstacle detectives faced. While the LAPD pursued a manageable list of actual leads, they were buried under a mountain of false confessions. Over 60 people claimed credit initially, a number that eventually grew to over 500. Detectives were forced to spend thousands of hours clearing these fake claims. While the department chased these dead ends, the actual killer's trail vanished into the noise of the investigation. Decades later, Steve Hodel applied his professional homicide training to his own family tree. He focused his inquiry on the one man who had the means and the background to commit the crime, his father, Dr. George Hodel. Steve began a cold case audit of his department's historical failures, looking for the specific point where the original investigation of his father had stalled. In 1947, Dr. George Hodel was an elite figure in Los Angeles society. He was a wealthy, successful physician who hosted Hollywood stars at his home, maintaining a public image of professional respectability. His medical background aligned with the findings of the 1947 autopsy. He possessed the surgical skills required for the bisection, and his resources provided the private space necessary to carry out such a controlled procedure. Steve's research uncovered a hidden history of abusive behavior that contradicted his father's public persona. He found records of violence and legal trouble that suggested a capacity for the brutality seen in the Black Dahlia case. To verify his suspicions, Steve spent years petitioning for the release of the original LAPD case files. These thousands of pages of internal memos revealed that George Hodel was a primary focus for the department as early as 1947, prioritized as a top-tier suspect. The original detectives understood exactly who possessed the necessary skill and proximity to the crime. Yet, despite this high-level interest, the records of their suspicions stayed buried in the archives, while the case remained officially unsolved. The investigation reached into the doctor's own home. In February 1947, the LAPD monitored a secret wiretap placed inside Hodel's Hollywood mansion, recording his private conversations for several weeks. On those tapes, Hodel was recorded saying, "Supposing I did kill the Black Dahlia, they couldn't prove it now." Investigators now had a recorded statement, a medical match, and a history of violence. But even with these leads, the department never moved toward an arrest or a public indictment. Shortly after the wiretap ended, George Hodel used his wealth to move his life to Asia. He spent the next several decades living outside the reach of the LAPD, far from the jurisdiction of the original crime. The investigation stopped precisely when it reached a suspect with the resources and connections to simply step out of the frame. In 1949, a grand jury reviewed the case and cited a lack of physical evidence as the reason the murder remained unsolved. This legal conclusion left the Black Dahlia case on the books as an open, cold case, where it remains today. While other names have surfaced over the decades, none match the specific intersection of medical expertise and proximity found in the Hodel files. No other suspect was recorded taunting the very detectives who were listening to his home. The Hodel case illustrates how wealth and social standing can insulate a suspect from the standard process of the law. It shows a system that, when faced with a prominent and well-connected target, chose to keep its findings internal rather than public. Elizabeth Short's legacy is defined by her status as a victim, a name that became famous only after her death. She arrived in Hollywood seeking a career, but her story became a permanent fixture of Los Angeles history because of the justice she never received.
In George Hodel's case, wealth and social standing created a barrier that 20 years of modern detective work couldn't quite break through. Steve Hodel spent his retirement building